OWN network is basically focusing on racial relations for the entire month. And they've gone back to a study that they did back in 1992 regarding race relations. And they also spoke to Jay-Z about his music and how it might have possibly had an impact on race relations. I don't want to take the words out of his mouth, so take a look at the video and see what he has to say.
I think that hip-hop has done more for racial relations than most cultural icons. And I say save Martin Luther King, because his dream speech, we realized when President Obama got elected. But the impact of the music, this music didn't only influence kids from urban areas, it influenced people all around the world. People listened to this music all around the world and took to this music. And racism is taught in the home. I truly believe that racism is taught when you're young. So it's very difficult to teach racism when your kid looks up to Snoop Doggy Dogg. And if you look at clubs and how integrated they had become, before people partied in separate clubs. There were hip-hop clubs and there were techno clubs, and now people party together. And once you have people partying, dancing, and singing along to the same music, then conversations naturally happen after that, right? And then within conversations that we all realize that we're more alike than we're separate.
So you can interpret this negatively and say, he seems to be saying he's more important than almost any civil rights leader except Martin Luther King.
Yeah, that's what it seems like he's saying. But I think that it's much more nuanced than that.
Yeah, but overall, I totally agree with him.
I do too. I agree with him in some regard, but there's also the other side of the coin. So first of all, everything that he says about people coming together in appreciation of hip hop and rap music is absolutely true, right? I think that there are a lot of people from all different sorts of backgrounds who appreciate hip hop and rap music. Like, for instance, I always bring up Kendrick Lamar because his album, if you listen to it from beginning to end, is a story of his life. And you hear his struggle, and then you hear about how he overcame that struggle. And it's a really interesting story that makes you empathize, or at least sympathize with what he went through, right? So it does have that impact. But I think a lot of times, unfortunately, hip hop serves as fodder for those who want to discriminate against black people. For those who want to make the argument that they're thugs and they're gangsters and they mistreat women and they're bad.
You're right about that, except that all those people are above the age of 60, right? They've lost the cultural argument already. So, because their kids listen to hip hop, and certainly their grandkids listen to hip hop. So when they go home and they're like, Bill O'Reilly's right, those hip hop thug people, and the kids are like, what are you talking about? I listen to hip hop. Am I? So then they realize Grandpa's full of crap.
I don't know if they're all grandpas, and I think that it might even have an impact on people subconsciously. You see what I'm saying? When you're hearing lyrics like, I mentioned this in the production meeting, lyrics like Rick Ross saying that he's going to put a Molly in someone's champagne without her knowing about it and then enjoy her all night. I mean, those kinds of messages do resonate with people, if not consciously, then
maybe that's where Bill
subconsciously.
Cosby got it from.
Maybe, I wouldn't be
So
surprised.
look, all that idea has been around a long, long time,
Yeah.
and you didn't need Cosby didn't need hip hop for it. So.
But look, to be honest with you, if you're an open-minded person and you don't come from a bubble or a culture that supports discrimination or racism or prejudice, then yeah, I mean, if you listen to some of the lyrics and some of the, issues that people have to deal with, then yeah, you hear these stories and you understand them better.
Yeah, and look, I just think that culturally they won, okay? The people who did hip-hop music and brought us together, right? And I think culture matters more than almost anything else. So whether it's the internet, I only half-jokingly say porn. If we spread that across the world, people would be far more likely to leave fundamentalist religion of any sort, right? And be more open-minded, et cetera. But this is the best example. Okay, you got kids all across the world singing these songs. So it's harder to say that the guy who sang the song is an N-word or is bad or is wrong. It's not, he's actually underselling it. Because it's not just about whites and blacks, it's about people being more open to America as well. So, in the Middle East, they might hate our government, but they like our music, right? And sometimes in some places, they might have to listen to it secretly, but they're still listening to it.
Yeah, and by the way, there's another kind of element to this that I think is really fascinating. So you have black rappers who will rap about crime or whatever it is, and they do get a lot of negative criticism for it, you know, from those who want to pick at them for their lyrics. And then you'll have rappers who kind of do the same thing, but they're not black, and they don't get a similar criticism for it, which I always found kind of interesting. So like Eminem would be an example. Eminem got a lot of criticism in the very beginning, and he especially got criticism for some of the anti-gay lyrics that he had. But, you know, when you have someone like Miley Cyrus, for instance, twerking, or when you have Iggy Azalea doing her thing with her rap, it's considered cool. And when you have Macklemore winning a Grammy over someone like Kendrick Lamar, like, it's really interesting how certain people get rewarded for their behavior and their lyrics as opposed to black hip-hop artists or rappers.